evening. As the Pitt County Board of Commissioners, welcome. We are so happy that you came to visit us tonight. Let's call the roll. We have a full attendance. Thank you. We will now stand for invocation by Commissioner Melvin McLaughlin.
Shall we pray? Turn to God first of all, we come to thank you. We thank you for life, health, and strength. Bless now, Lord, that you guide our minds and our thoughts, that we will not make the decision for your people of this county. Bless these in thy holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner McLaughlin. I'd like to invite Lay Mills, SGA President, and Emily Ingalls, Vice President of South Greenfield
Student Government Association.
Student Government Association to the podium to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and after we sit down, you may introduce and say something about yourself. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Introduce yourself. We're happy to have you.
Good evening. My name is Lane Mills. I am currently a senior at J.H. Rose High School, and I am currently the Student Body President of the Student Government Association.
And I'm Emily Ingalls, and I'm also a senior at Rose, and I'm the Student Body Vice President of the Student Government Association.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us this evening. You may be seated. Thank you.
And I'm glad I got your names right. We will now have a motion on the agenda.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a recommendation, a request to have item decision number 2 following the presentation.
Second.
It's been motioned by Commissioner McLaughlin that we amend the agenda, and it was seconded by Commissioner Mark Smith, to change the agenda.
Restate what we're doing again, I'm sorry.
Yes, it's been suggested that the quarterly ARPA update, which is item for decision number 2, be moved after presentations, since you have several people in the audience who are here for that matter.
Thank you.
First on the agenda.
Madam Chair.
We vote. I didn't vote. I was busy changing it. Unanimous. Thank you. Public address to the board, Madam Manager.
Yes, you have several signed up to speak. If the county attorney would read the statement.
Pitt County welcomes all comments on matters of public concern. Each person will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. A total of 30 minutes is set aside for public addresses to the board. Please state your name and address prior to speaking. I'll keep your time at 3 minutes.
And the first person signed up is...
We have 2 chairs on the front, Miss. We have two seats on the front. Excuse me?
There's one seat full.
Oh, just one? See, my eyes is doing things. We have a seat on the front and one in the middle over here. Make yourself comfortable, please. Do you have one, Mr. Rose?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rose, stick your hand up. That's Mr. Rose right there. He's the county planner.
Back over there.
Yeah. Make yourself comfortable.
And there's some on that back row that looks.
Thank you. I just want the door cleared. Okay? Now we are ready.
First person signed up is it Josephine Butler?
Ms. Butler, are you here? Come forward, please. There's the podium. Adjust the mic to your height. We are tall people, aren't we?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Josephine Butler. I'm here about the water project. We in the Whiting Station community and surrounding area have been trying to attain a water system since 1999. Water lines nearest to the intersection of Highway 30 and State Mill Road are as follows. Greenville Utilities comes to 3562 State Mill Road, less than 2 miles away. Stokes Regional Water Corporation comes to Highway 30 and Oakley Road, which is approximately 2 miles away. Some factors why we need water from Greenville Utilities are low water pressure during drought, iron, rust, and hard water. Then there's questionable chemical residues, bacteria. Residents are buying water for domestic needs. Purchasing our water from GUC would promote growth for Pitt County and Greenville Utilities. Invested in a new deep well is not always the solution. For example, I had a deep well installed in August of 2022, which was costly. The well has been chlorinated 4 times with the following water sample leaks results. Coliform bacteria positive 4 out of 5 times with high level in iron and sodium levels. As a renal patient, the results were not friendly for domestic use. Our question to you, the county commissioners, is there any way we would qualify for assistance through the Pitt County government or to get American Rescue Plan or other grants for this dire needed project? Any assistance you can provide would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for letting us present our water needs. Thank each of you.
You're welcome.
Next person is Barbara Flake.
Now, Miss Blake, I would like for you to adjust that microphone because we are all 6 feet 5.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Better? Okay.
I think they'll hear you now.
My name is Barbara Flake, and I live on Statham Mill Road. The Whiting Station area where I live has been a farming community for many centuries. As much as we would like for it to remain this way, we are seeing farmers quickly leave this profession because of age, expense, and the fact that their children don't see a future in the small farm for themselves. One of the alternatives we are seeing as landowners seem to be is to sell off for developers and residential lots for new homes to be built. I am often contacted by developers wanting to buy my land. It is of great concern for me to sell any land right now as there is not an adequate and safe water supply, not only for the people living there, and for any people that might want to eventually move there. I strongly feel that we need to start getting a handle on this problem now instead of waiting for it to become a bigger and more costly project. I ask you as commissioners to make this water project a priority immediately. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it Millie House?
It is.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Millie House, 3558 State Mill Road, that's Robertsonville, and I've lived at our residence about 38 years. Water, as we know, is essential for all forms of life, yet so much of it's non-potable. And we think about throughout the country. I just did a quick search, and quickly there was 25 cities that came up with water contaminants. We hear about Jackson, Mississippi, but I'll tell you, I'm not so sure our water is really any better out in our area. As you heard Ms. Butler describe the contaminants and bacteria in the water, those who have wells out in the area, probably have not ever tested those wells since they've been dug. I'm very fortunate that I'm next to the last house when the water line was extended from Greenville probably 25 to 30 years ago. The water quality is so much better. I can compare that to what it was before. Prior to that, it was really rusty. We had children. We didn't test it for any further bacteria once the well was dug, so I don't know about that. But we had to pay for a water softener company out of Washington for their service each month. And oftentimes the clothes look worse coming out of the washing machine than they did before when you put them in. So that's how bad the water is at times. But thankfully, I was working and able to pay for that service. Many people are not. We are a diverse, racially mixed community with infants, children, many with their immune system compromised, and elderly. While contaminants may not harm a healthy person, some of them may not, some may, but certainly for those who have those problems that I just mentioned are at risk for their health. I know that the EPA requires water utilities to test for and address many germs and chemicals in drinking water systems, but I don't know that in rural areas, as I said, probably has not been tested since the well was dug, and many probably have contaminants just like Ms. Butler described. So we really just want to improve our water, our quality for our children, our older adults, those that are ill, and have just better water system in our community. Thank you for the time.
You're welcome.
Donna Matthews?
Hi, I'm Donna Matthews. I live at 468 Thigpen Road, and living in the Whitehurst community north of the river was always a dream of mine. I moved here in 2008 on a family farm, and we had to put down a 325-foot well in order to get water that was drinkable at the time. Because of the hog houses, now we have chicken houses. Now, the spraying of all the chemicals on the farms, because we're all farmland. I'm having trouble now drinking my water because it's becoming a different taste. We're getting ready to have it tested as well. And I know from my aunts and uncles that lived on Highway 30 that they started out with 25-foot wells. And, you know, 100 years ago, that was fine, but now they can't live like that. Many of them have passed on even after having 300 and some foot wells dug, and they're still having water problems in those homes. My uncle just put some elaborate water system in his home that was my grandmother's home, that's filtrated and all this kind of stuff, and he's in his 80s. How's he ever going to get his money back out of that? We are in an area that is full of 70, 75-year-olds and over. We're also in an area that's full of health risks that need clean water. Cancer, I have it myself. Renal problems was just stated. We have many out there on dialysis, that kind of thing. Kidney stones, my cousin and I both, 2 different roads. And it's constant. And we look at each other and like, are you drinking the water? I mean, that's one of the issues. I don't think the older people can afford to continue putting in new wells, or having to buy water by the case just to take a bath, you know, just to boil butter beans. It's not right, and we need to, in 2023, we need to come up with an idea that will get water north of the river. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Christina Brown? Or Christine Brown?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Christine Brown. I live on 4074 State Mill Road. And we all need water really bad. My water run kind of slow. If you run at one place, you try to run another place, you can't get no water like that. And I was diagnosed with cancer. So, like I said, we really need water really bad. And I hope we get water, because we really need it. And I have to buy water myself, and thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Ray Brown?
I'm going to give you time.
Thank you. How's everybody doing today?
Fine, thank you.
That's good. My name is Vernon Ray Brown, and I live on the State Mill Road that my wife just worked here. And like she said, we got a few chicken that we feed, and it's bad when you get water running one place and then it cuts off when it's running. And our washing machine, a lot of times we had to wait to the rain to wash clothes. And, you know, it's kind of bad for us to be living in a situation like that. But I pray and hope that we can get water on the State Mill Road because we really need it. And I thank y'all so much for having me up here today. And we just try to go on with the process. And y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
David
Oh, let me
Collier.
say a couple more things.
Well, make quick.
Okay, I've been on diet for 13 years this year. And I need water to take a bath every 3 days because I go Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And I really need water. And y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
David Collier.
Good evening. I'm David Collier, and I live at 465 Moss Point Lane. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me the opportunity to address the board, and thank you for the work that you do. I am here in my capacity as Emeritus President of the Board of Directors for Community Crossroads Center. Briefly, Community Crossroads Center is a 501(c) organization incorporated as the Greenville Community Shelter in October of 1987. For the past 35 years, we have provided temporary emergency shelter, meals, counseling, case management, medical care for men, women, and families with children finding themselves in a state of homelessness. We are in West Greenville at 207 Manhattan Avenue, and our campus occupies about one city block and is comprised of the main building and the site of the recently demolished Agnes Fully Loved School building. The main building was completed in 2015 and houses the men's dorm, the women's dorm, 4 family rooms, laundry facility, dining facility, kitchen, pantry, and administrative wing. Currently, the maximum capacity is 98 residents with rooms to house 4 families. In 2018-2019, before COVID, our census averaged 89 residents sheltered per night, with about 650 individuals served per year, about 10% of whom are veterans. During the pandemic, we had to have the family rooms available for quarantine for residents with COVID, so families in homelessness have been offered temporary housing in hotels through a grant program funded by the City of Greenville. The administrative suite houses over 5 full-time employees and also offers community-based activities and programs. In 2020, the board decided to develop a homeless resource center, a program to sustain and grow the services offered to the community that is particularly focused on the addition of 6 new family rooms, bringing us to a total of 10 families that we could serve. We will also add 2 quarantine rooms that allow us to safeguard the health of everyone living in congregate housing. As the first step in developing this homeless resource center, we had to decommission the Agnes Fully Loved School building because it became too decrepit and costly to maintain. And in September 2022, we completed asbestos remediation and demolition of the building. Now we plan to build a 1-story, energy-efficient building of about 13,000 square feet to house respite space, education training facilities, free medical clinic, and unfinished storage space to handle the high volume of donations we receive. The administrative suite will also be moved to the new building, and 3,100 square feet that was formerly administrative space will be renovated to provide 6 additional family rooms and 2 isolation quarantine rooms with separate external entrances. To help fund this project, we are seeking support from both Pitt County and the City of Greenville. In August of 2021, we submitted a written request to Pitt County for $1 million in ARPA funding, and a public presentation request was made at Citizens Input Meeting in Farmville in December of 2021. We have also requested matching funding from the City of Greenville. The balance of funding for this project will come from the NC Housing Finance Agency, foundation grants, and private donations. Thank you for your consideration and for your support.
You're welcome.
Then we have, is it Corinne or Connie Whitehurst?
Hi,
Hi, my name is Karina Whitehurst. I live at 4133 State Mill Road. I live in the Whitehurst community also. I've resided there for 43 years. Since my husband and I moved, we've had some chicken houses that have come close to us. It's probably within 500 to 600 feet of our resident. I don't know if you would actually consider it as chicken houses or if you would consider it as a mass poultry production. I don't know how that affects their quality of water. Within a half a mile from us also, a hog operation has moved in. And it just concerns me that we don't have water like people in the city do, and anything that you could do to help us get water would be greatly appreciated. And thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all that we have signed up to speak for public addresses.
Any more?
Nobody else has signed up to speak.
Thank you very much. We'll take everything under consideration. We have now on the board, on our agenda, presentation.
Madam Chairwoman, we have 3 presentations that we'll do down front before we go, if the board will consider and vote on the proclamation recognizing Emma Dupree Day.
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion from Commissioner Nunley, second by Commissioner Ward, that we vote for the Emma Dupree Day. Unanimous, Madam Clerk.
And if we can go down front. We have 3 presentations this evening, and we'll start with the NACO Student Art Competition. That's the National Association of Counties annually presents a student art competition. And the competition theme is entitled, I Love My County Because. The goal of the competition is to start a dialogue with students to help them learn about county responsibilities and leadership. Students were invited to complete the sentence, I love my county because, with an accompanying creative work of art depicting an aspect of what counties accomplish in their community. So there were several students from Chicago Elementary School who are with us this evening who are in attendance to receive their recognition. And I believe on your screen, if you have it, should be a grouping of the winning artworks. So first, if I call your name, please come forward. We'll start with the honorable mentions. There were 4 honorable mentions and 3 winners. The first is a certificate of appreciation awarded to Yesenia Gomez Salas. If you would come forward, are you present?
Not here, somebody shaking their head.
Not here? Okay, we will hold on to that one. The second honorable mention is Olivia Rosenberger.
Olivia, come forward, please. Congratulations. Aren't you happy?
And then you can present
I'm
that.
happy to have you. You want to stand here, and I'm going to shake your hand right here, and we're going to take your picture, okay?
Great. Let's do let's do individuals and a group, if you would. Thank you. And then if you'll stay up here, you can stand right here while we get the rest of the group. Congratulations. The next honorable mention is Taylor Smithson.
Oh, Taylor. Wow, congratulations. Thank you for flying. Well, let me shake your hand and say congratulations. Thank you.
Great. And if you will wait right here for the group picture. Thank you. The next one is a certificate of appreciation awarded to Emma Boyd for being selected as a winner in the 2022 NACO I Love My County Art Contest. Emma Boyd.
The winner. Congratulations, Emily.
You can have that. Whoops.
There you go. Don't lose that. Okay.
Thank you. And if you'll wait here
Congratulations.
for the group picture.
Now we're going to take a group picture.
We have two more winners.
Ooh.
The second winner of the NACO I Love My County Art Contest is Seal Williams.
Phil. Okay. Oh, you had an accident. Congratulations. Be careful when you walk.
Thank
Turn
you.
around
Come
here.
here for a picture.
There we go.
Thank you. And if you'll wait up here for the group picture. And our last recognition this evening goes to Kaysen Moore, who was the third winner of the I Love My County Art Contest. Is Kaysen Moore present? Okay.
She's shaking her head.
All right. Well, we will hold that and get those awards.
Group
and if we
picture.
could come together for a group picture.
You want to stand in the middle,
Put
or
you
you
all
can
in the
stand
middle.
wherever you like. That'll
There
be
you go.
wonderful. Let's get a little close here. There we go. How's that, madam?
Congratulations to all of you winners. Thank you so much for coming to be recognized.
You may go down to your seat. Congratulations. Now, you didn't want to talk, did you?
And for those of you who are coming in through the front entrance, you'll see on the wall as you come into the county office building all of the artwork displayed for the 3 winners and the 4 honorable mentions on the wall as you come in.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm the teacher. I'll collect the ones that are.
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank you
good.
so much. These are the
Thank you very much. And congratulations on your hard work.
Oh, thank
this one and this one. And
We're trying to go fast so everyone standing can get out
there were 3
as quick
that were
as we
missing,
can.
correct? Thank you so very much. We really appreciate your work with the students.
Okay.
Okay. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing Emma Dupree Day. Our folks here from the town of Fountain.
Fountain, come forward. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
What's your position?
I am ambassador of Fountain.
Good.
I don't have an official position.
You just got one.
Okay, terrific. Well, I am so pleased to present to you a proclamation this evening designating April 15th, 2023 as Emma Dupree Health and Wellness Day by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners. And that proclamation reads, whereas Emma Dupree was an influential black herbalist who grew up in Falkland and moved to Fountain with her husband Austin, where they raised their children. And whereas Emma Dupree was drawn to the land where she was known for her work with native herbs such as sassafras, white mint, double tansy, rabbit tobacco, maypop, mullein, catnip, horseradish, silkweed, and many more. And whereas Emma Dupree received the Brown Hudson Award from the North Carolina Folklore Society in 1984, which recognized her as an individual who made significant contributions to the transmission, appreciation, and observance of traditional culture and folk life in North Carolina. And whereas Emma Dupree was also awarded the North Carolina Heritage Award, a lifetime achievement recognition for notable traditional folk artists in North Carolina. And whereas, according to Emma Dupree, quote, all that we see, everything that is growing in the earth is healing to the nation of any kind of disease. And whereas Emma Dupree was a gracious and giving citizen who shared her remedies, knowledge, and love with so many until her passing at her Fountain home in 1996. And whereas the town of Fountain has planned a celebration honoring Emma Dupree on April 15th, 2023. Now therefore be it resolved, the Pitt County Board of Commissioners designates April 15th, 2023 as Emma Dupree Health and Wellness Day in Pitt County and encourages our citizens to celebrate this event with the town of Fountain. Adopted this 20th day of March, 2023, signed by Chairwoman Mary Perkins Williams and attested by Kimberly Hines, clerk to the board. There you go.
Thank you so much for your kindness.
And everybody's invited to attend. Saturday the 15th from 10 to 3.
Will we get lost getting there?
Just don't blink when you get out of town.
Yes,
Thank
Pitt County
you.
values our partnerships with each of our 10 municipalities,
Yes.
and we are thrilled to share this celebratory occasion with the town of Fountain.
Thank you so much.
All right, and our last presentation this evening is our Employee of the Month. If Dexter Hardy would come forward.
Dexter Hardy here. Ah,
We are so fortunate in Pitt County government to have the most amazing, talented group of employees serving our citizens each and every day. And this month, his peers selected Dexter Hardy as our Employee of the Month. Dexter is an employee of the Environmental Health Division within the Public Health Department and particularly handles mostly restaurant inspections, correct? He was selected for always uplifting and encouraging his team. His nominator said he always has a positive attitude and is willing to go the extra mile. On many occasions, he has completed additional inspections that were not even in his territory. Dexter has also worked past regular work hours or on weekends without complaint to complete work that's required by the department, says his nominator. He served in Pitt County since 2020 as an environmental health specialist at the health department, where he primarily conducts inspections of food, lodging, and institutional facilities. For that, we have for you a certificate of recognition that says Employee of the Month, March 2023, presented to Dexter Hardy, Environmental Health, in recognition of your dedication and exemplary service to Pitt County government and the citizens we serve. Also enclosed is a $100 check to thank you for your good work.
Thank you. Job well done. Anything to say?
I'm good.
Have a seat. We got a picture. Hold on.
Thank you so much. Very good. Thank you. All right. Madam Chairwoman, with the change in your agenda, you'll now advance to item for decision number 2.
Item decision for number 2 is quarterly ARPA update. Mr. Crooms and Jennifer Roman. Ms. Roman is our ARP specialist, right?
That's correct.
Welcome. I think this is your first appearance? Second.
Second appearance. Yep. Well, good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Manager. Tonight, Jennifer Roman and I bring you an update on the American Rescue Plan. This update provides a recap of deadlines, board actions, achievements, and updated financials since the last ARPA update in November 2022. Also, Assistant County Manager James Rose will be joining us tonight. He'll be presenting an update and providing recommendations on allocating funds for the water and sewer infrastructure and the housing and homelessness cost centers. Finally, we would like the board to consider and provide staff directions on the ARPA allocations and funding. Now I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Good evening, Madam Manager and Commissioners. We are back today with a follow-up report of ARPA funds. You will recall the timeline as follows. December 31st, 2024, all ARPA funds must be obligated. December 31st, 2026, all ARPA funds must be spent. Our last quarterly report to the board was back in November 2022. Pitt County received a total of $35.1 million in 2021, along with the following breakdown of dates. One of our greatest accomplishments since our last report has been the execution of all 3 nonprofit organization agreements, as approved by the board. Pitt County will provide ARPA funds to the following 3 nonprofit organizations. Boys and Girls Clubs will receive $750,000. They will utilize funds to purchase school buses along with establishing academic success programs. Greenville Pitt Convention Visitors Bureau will receive $600,000 in lost occupancy tax revenue. They will utilize funds to provide aid to the travel and tourism industry here in Pitt County. They will also support tourism and increase staffing levels to pre-pandemic levels and assure Pitt County is ready for business. Lastly, A Time for Science will utilize its funds to finish the construction of a science building in Grifton, North Carolina that will support education, specifically youth education. I would also like to highlight other accomplishments beyond nonprofits. With the help of PIO, Pitt County now has an ARPA webpage where residents can follow along ARPA projects and stay up to date with what projects are ready for the public. This will be a great forum to tell our story as projects are developing. With the help of ARPA funds, Pitt County Sheriff radio systems have been upgraded as well. This is an amazing ARPA project that was completed back at the end of November. With this project, it will allow the Sheriff's Department to improve communication and also provide the public with excellent service. Thank you.
And I would just like to note that Jennifer has been ARP coordinator for roughly 4 months with many achievements. So congratulations, Jennifer, on that. Great achievements. Tonight, give you an update on the cost centers. This is what we normally present. Here, these are our 7, like I said, cost centers. Under the allocation column, the board has allocated the $35,107,015. Moving across, we have obligated $7,582,709. Next, we have pending obligations of $17,715,930. The available to obligate column represents remaining ARPA funds that are available for the board to allocate, and this is $9,808,374. These columns, as far as obligated, these are obligations that either we have contracted or actually spent the money. On the pending obligations, you can think of these items as moving from allocated to pending as we contract. And then what's available to obligate is what we are seeking guidance for y'all to provide us direction on how to spend the remaining ARPA funds. And finally, Pitt County has spent $5,099,000 year to date. So the next slide, this is what you see in your board packet on page 113. It is a detailed breakdown of the previous slide listing specific projects along with the same allocated amounts, obligations, pending obligations, and available to obligate amounts and expenditures. If you have questions on any of these projects, we'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. And now I turn it over to James Rhodes to bring you an update and recommendations on the water and sewer infrastructure and the housing and homelessness cost centers.
Thank you, Sam. Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, you've already heard quite eloquently tonight a number of concerns about the water service in the Whitehurst Station area. That's also an area, didn't bring a map tonight for you, but it's basically the NC30 area, State and Mill Road area, north of the river. We did get a cost estimate in from the Greenville Utilities Commission that would actually provide this service. It would be an extension to their area. And right now it's looking like all total possibly up to 8 miles that could be served there. Based on our estimates, that's about 100 households or more in that particular vicinity. So tonight, based off the chart that Sam just shared with you, the portion that's available to obligate in the infrastructure column would be $1 million. And the top one that we're bringing before you tonight is the NC30 State and Mill Road Vicinity Water Service Extension. Also, as a second bullet here, might be other considerations, but again, as a reminder, there's $1 million that's been set aside for infrastructure. The other item, long awaited, $4 million has been also set aside for housing and homelessness. And we've been talking about this at various meetings in the past, and we're here tonight to kind of lay out what we feel like are the primary concerns and some of these that need to be considered as soon as possible. First, in the homeless housing resources is Community Crossroads. And you've already heard that discussion from Dr. Collier earlier, and how there are some needed services for that particular facility. And some of these services that would actually provide some daytime accommodations for some of the citizens that are currently at the shelter. So 1 million, that's been a steady amount from the onset, and we've had some comments about that at other meetings. Also, the Department of Social Services, our staff has reached out to the Department of Social Services about some other types of resources that may be available for prevention mitigation. They run a similar program currently, and in turn, this would be additional resources that could be extended to some of the households that are experiencing homelessness or are on the verge of becoming homeless. Also, Dr. Collier alluded to some of the money that has been made available from the city of Greenville for temporary hotel sheltering. The county also has a smaller amount that's typically provided by Vidant Foundation, but there is a need currently for more of that funding, so we've also are requesting $100,000 towards that. On the housing side of things, and this is really to help with some of the other concerns that we've got in our area. First up, Habitat for Humanity is another nonprofit that has submitted a request for funding. We have considered funding up to 4 units with them, $575,000 for those improvements. And then the other one, most of you realize we've got a long-standing waiting list of people in our community for housing repairs. More importantly, we've been without any housing replacement funds for a number of years, and to be quite frank, we've got homes that we can't repair right now. They need to be replaced. So we've got close to $2 million that we're requesting to help get people moved off of this waiting list. So that all totals to $4 million. That's the amount that's been previously allocated for this particular line item. Sam.
The next quarterly update for ARPA would be June 2023. Now Jennifer, James, and myself are available for questions and discussion. And also, we're seeking guidance on ARPA allocation and funding.
Commissioner Coulson, I saw you first.
As far as the water supplying, you said that maybe $1 million set aside for that. It might go to help 100 homes. You talked with Greenville Utilities. How much is Greenville Utilities willing to put up? Because they're going to be charging for this.
Well, right now, the cost estimate is $3.5 million or $3.6 million, and I won't say that they've committed to that, but we at least want to get at the table with them, if possible, and see what kind of partnership we can have.
I'm sorry.
We're also looking at possible grants that might help with this, other types of grants besides your ARPA funding.
Now, connection fees oftentimes are very expensive. Do you know what the connection fees the residents would end up paying even if they got the water?
We're already working on that part, and right now with USDA, it appears like that we would be in good standing to receive funds for the actual connections. So, but they can be costly, yes. I don't have a dollar figure for that.
All right, thank you.
I saw another hand to my left. Commissioner McGovern, did you have a?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I want to thank you, James, and certainly the staff for getting these resources available for you through your financial department. But I also was concerned about, and maybe you can think about this as you, we have until, I think it was December the 30th, 2024, before we can spend all of these funds.
We have to obligate by December 31st, 2024,
Right.
and spend all these funds by December 31st, 2026.
Along with your affordable housing projects that you that you talked about. And I think you well know that affordable housing is a major need, a concern for the citizens of Pitt County. One of the things that I was concerned about was the transitional housing, a housing whereby some of the people or citizens of Pitt County have problems, and they're living in these apartments, and the renters are going up tremendously with their costs, and they can't afford it. And these people are working 40 hours a day, and it's very painful for them to even stay in the trailer. And some of these people, again, have good jobs and families, and they just can't stay in them. So I was basically concerned about transitional homes, homes that you can, these FEMA-type trailers that was brought in some years ago, I think north of the river. But if we can get something like that, maybe as a concern, to get have some of these citizens of this county staying in those and have some of the FEMA, the ARPA funds available for such a project of that nature. And I think that this will allow the citizens of this county the ability to pay for the trailer in a sense, and also social services will be involved in it, and so it can be a win-win situation. Now, that was a concern that I have. I see you up, James. Do you have any comments in that area?
I do, Mr. McLawhorn. We're used to providing permanent housing. Transitional housing has another connotation, especially when it comes to the federal government, and the federal government doesn't typically look favorable at transitional housing. So you might be talking about a transition in a sense, but we're looking for permanent housing for folks. And we've got programs set up, emergency solutions grant funding, other funds that if people are bona fide homeless and they have to meet certain criteria for that we've got programs that can help them pay rent, utilities, and so forth. And that's part of the program that we are also mentioning for DSS, is possibly providing additional assistance to get people on their feet in the permanent housing. The transitional housing is going to require a lot of additional services, most likely from DSS, if it is truly transitional in nature, where you've got people coming in. Transitional housing have been like boarding houses before, and I'm not sure that's what you're talking about tonight. That's the type of transitional housing that you typically would see, and again, would not necessarily be looked upon favorably by the federal government.
James, would you also mention, if I could, the board may have also heard about Arlington Trace, which is a 180-unit affordable housing development that'll be put up by private developers that was supported by the city of Greenville. They'll have up to 20 at-risk units within that development, which will serve veterans at risk of homelessness, victims of violence, and others who are deemed to be at risk of homeless or actually homeless within that division. Now, that's not going to serve your immediate need, but that's part of the $22.3 million investment from the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency. It will be a 180-unit housing development, which will be $31.6 million of investment, and $1 million contributed by Greenville to support that. But so we've had several meetings with different folks, including CARE and Tanya Foreman, the city of Greenville, other stakeholders in the housing and homelessness and affordable housing community, to really look across the board at all of the options, from safe parking lots with mobile showers to pallet homes to transitional homes to affordable housing to programming that will get folks with sufficient funds, folks that due to no fault of their own, their rent came up or their vouchers weren't accepted any longer and they're sleeping in their car, working folks. And so these programs as presented would not fund the traditional transitional housing
that I think you're referencing, but would provide funding for that security deposit, that first month's rent, that the services from Department of Social Services that will help folks get into and maintain permanent housing moving forward. It's also done in conjunction with a weekly phone call that's currently happening now with all housing and homelessness stakeholders to address some of those issues and really provide multi-agency support to individuals who've been identified as being in need of those services. So I just wanted to add that to James's response.
So you're saying then that the ARPA funds will now support or fund these trailers type homes for the individuals, families to stay in.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm
What are you
saying our recommendation is to look at permanent housing, the transitional housing, to get that put up and find a place for transitional housing. If we're looking at bringing new units in, that could be a pretty good time and effort to get that established. So not to say that it can't be done, that is not our top priority. When we're working with folks on a weekly basis and trying to get folks in housing, they need to be moving into permanent housing.
Well, my concern, James, is that we look into that. See, could we find some a method of funding such a program? It bothers me to see the many citizens of Pitt County suffering behind not being into their own homes because of no fault of their own. The renters just sabotaging them and raising the price of rent, and these people have to live. So I would certainly be concerned that we can look into it in depth and see what we can do in terms of having such a program available for them.
Are you finished, Commissioner McGlohan?
I am.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Nanale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions. First, it'll be directed to the State Mill project. And question whether or not if we were to take that $1 million and allocate it to that project now, would that expedite getting folks in that community water?
I believe it would if we actually expedite the discussions with Greenville Utilities, the service provider. So yes, my belief it would.
And by us making that move, we could commit it now and kind of get those discussions moving.
Correct.
Is that your opinion? Okay.
That is my opinion.
All right. And so my second question involves the housing and homelessness, and we've heard a lot about the immediate need from the community, the immediate need to provide housing for our residents. And I guess what I want to hear in particular, one that's been on our docket for a while, is the Crossroads Center. And we had discussions with Crossroads, with partnering on them a project, trying to rehab the old Agnes Full of Love building. Sounds like they kind of moved in a different direction on that. My concern is that we are making sure that if we are going to continue and invest in a project, that we've got the city of Greenville that is actively working with the community to make sure that the park that also is on the campus, right, which is the Dream Park that has seen increased incidents of a lot of not too great activity for children and youth that like to benefit it. So what are we doing about moving forward with a project such like that in the Higgs neighborhood, in the city of Greenville? What's the city doing to join us in that effort? What I'm concerned about is that we go down a road and we try to do something the same way that we've always done it. How are we going to change our approach, or is this a change in approach? Or are we just kind of doing it the same way we've always done it, or do we need to look at other approaches to do it? And it's just an honest question. I'm not fishing for an answer. I just really want to know, has the city joined in, and are they going to be partners with that effort, right, across the board? And then two, if they are, Is it monetary, or are we looking at like kind of a match situation, like we'll match up to whatever their investment is, or is it just kind of, if you could expand on that a little bit?
I do believe the city is a willing partner in this effort. The manager and I just met with city staff a couple of weeks ago. They're very interested in some of these programs. They have another set of ARPA funds, home ARPA funds, that they're dedicating a significant portion to some of the activities we've discussed tonight. So in that respect, I think they're a very willing partner. The question about the Dream Park and some of the activities there, in my opinion, providing some of the services that are going to be made available in the expansion of the Community Crossroads Shelter will help that situation.
So, and I'll just follow up, and this is again, I heard 10 family homes. Rooms, 10 family rooms. Is that doing enough?
It depends. Things ebb and flow as far as homelessness.
So I guess if we're making this type of investment, right, is there, and again, this is just something to consider, and kind of along the same lines that Commissioner McLaughlin was going down, I think, if what I see in the presentation tonight is that we're looking to allocate the full balance of what we've got left in that bucket, right?
Correct.
And before we do that, I want to make sure that we are maximizing servicing the most amount of people that we can, especially families, possible, right? And, I wonder if every leaf has been turned over yet. I guess that's the question.
Well, I'll just give you one indication. Currently, Community Crossroads has funding available typically on a weekly basis for 4 households to be temporarily placed in a shelter, outside of the shelter, so typically in a hotel. When we met, I believe 2 weeks ago, there were only 2 of those rooms that were taken. So there were only 2 family units that were seeking that funding. So in that regard, it would appear that 2 rooms would have been sufficient at the Community Crossroads Center that week.
But yet, when I drive by, there are a lot of people that are not in homes every day in that neighborhood. And so my question is whether or not, so we're not filling those rooms, right? But the question is, are we actually meeting the people where they need to be met to get there? And is what we're doing going to actually accomplish it? Because what I don't want us to do is spend the money and just be back where we've been the last 40 years, doing it the same way.
I believe things are changing. Certainly, we've got a coordinated entry process that if people are truly homeless and they're seeking services, we've got a coordinated entry process that's sanctioned through the federal government. This is where it's the entry point. There's a testing system to see what types of services are needed, where people should be placed. And at the end of the day, we've got the resources available at these meetings to make sure if it's a domestic violence situation, how they can actually be treated at a different facility versus Community Crossroads. So all those resources together, the biggest thing for anybody in the community, anybody watching tonight, is to make those referrals, whether it be to our office, Department of Social Services, Community Crossroads. Those people need to come through that portal so we can get them into some of these programs.
I could add to that as well, in response to that question, may I? Sure. We have had several conversations with the city of Greenville, and I just wanted to share with them that I'm confident that the city manager will recommend a matching contribution to ours up to $1 million in City of Greenville home ARPA funds, less the amount that they've spent on rental assistance. So, to date, because they have been funding the program that replaces those 4 homes with 4 hotel rooms, essentially. So you're looking at about $750,000 from the city of Greenville to match the county's payment if this board chose to make one, towards the homeless shelter. So I'm confident in that. We've had multiple discussions on that. The other piece of it is that I think in all of our conversations, it seems based especially, and I'll just acknowledge the conversations and meetings that I've had with Tanya Foreman, who's also present, would like to recognize her for being here, about some of the more urgent needs, that it seems anecdotally that 10 family rooms is insufficient for the urgent needs in the community now. But I'm not sure that we have an immediate alternative to that. And so the only thing I would say to the board is that this is one piece of the puzzle, and there are multiple pieces of the puzzle that you've seen on that slide full of recommendations. And if I can share, and stay if I misstate this, in my follow-up conversations with Ms. Foreman, she said there wasn't anything on the list of recommendations that she could disagree with as not having a need for, but what was missing was her desire to see some more urgent transitional housing.
Actually, Madam Chair.
I'm trying to wait till the manager finish, and then I'm gonna ask you, are you satisfied with her response?
And then you can.
Then you can continue, and we're gonna end you.
So that's what I wanted to share, just to know that we recognize the immediate and urgent needs of good, hardworking families who have fallen on very difficult times, and that there are multiple pieces to the puzzle. And these recommendations are one option of a way that this board could allocate some or all of the funds that you have set aside for this. The other thing I would say is that there are funds remaining in other buckets. Your buckets are not set in stone. So you have $4 million in your housing and homelessness bucket because that's how we started out initially. But if you see excess money anywhere else in that chart that's included on page 113, you can consider moving funds from one bucket to another. So I don't want you to feel as if you are limited or your hands are tied by those initial bucket allocations. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Well, it would be outside of rules, so I think we would need to have a consensus from the board. But because we did hear from Ms. Foreman on this matter earlier, I would like to, and she was referred to, I would like to hear from her personally, if the board consents. But of course, I'll defer if we don't have unanimity.
Now, I don't know what you're saying, so we're gonna move on. Commissioner, I'll get back to you, okay? I promise, Commissioner Huggins has signaled that she'd like to.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to talk also about the crossroad. As Commissioner Nunley said, we don't want to keep doing the same thing in the same way. And we're not meeting enough of the immediate needs. And yes, we hope the city will partner with us, but I'm wondering if we could not use some of the dilapidated houses and make those repairs. And James did talk about repairs and replacement of some houses. I think that would be that would help with immediate needs.
I want to be clear about that. Remember, the city has their own.
Yes, they have their own.
We could not use our funding within that jurisdiction.
Yeah, but I'm sure we have some out in our jurisdiction that we could replace and repair.
Yes, we do, but there's a transportation issue there. So there's a whole philosophical discussion that goes along with this. I think you're right as far as some of those dilapidated homes could be used, but I think that's where we would need to partner again with the city to keep folks within this service area close by to the city.
Yes.
Are you finished, Commissioner
Yes.
Huggins?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
I wish I just could have an answer to throw out here, but I feel like we're all talking, but we don't have a committee or a group that's working. Everybody's working together, but they're working separately, it seems like to me, and I may be wrong on that. I don't hear a plan, and maybe we can't have a plan, I don't know, but it's here, and we're talking about it, but I think we need to be
organized and have a group that helps make some decisions between our meetings as to what needs to be done and what part can we do, where can the money come from, and that sort of thing, rather than continually just talking about it and not acting.
I'm gonna make a motion to.
I'm not ready to receive a motion, if you don't mind. Thank you. You have something different, Commissioner McGlohorn?
I just
Because
want-
I have a couple of questions, and
Yes, ma'am,
then
I just want
I don't want us to beat this mule so he can't move on.
No, I think this mule should be whooped because this is a worthy cause here.
Okay.
And in reference to Commissioner, I think that it's important that we look at the seriousness of this. This is a serious problem. Homelessness is a serious problem, and we should take it serious. We have, Commissioner Ward, we do have some individuals that has some very good programs, and they are meaningful. I think our manager mentioned Ms. Foreman. She has a very good, meaningful program. I did have a chance to meet with her. So we do, and housing is just serious. It's very serious, and I'm committed to housing because I've seen the need in this community. But I'm happy to hear that the city of Greenville, which I think they should, talking with us, communicating, trying to at least want to partner with us. And I know James said that some funds may not be available because of the nature of the city and the county. But whatever they can do, I think that's important. And just last statement, going back to the trailers, I read an article where it's cost about $20,000 to have one of these FEMA-type trailers. And I don't think, my concern is that these citizens that will go into these trailers will be able to pay some affordable amount back, not to give them anything, but let them be responsible enough to pay a certain amount, count them to get some funds back, and utilize these funds appropriately. So I think it'll be a win-win situation if we can look more in depth on those type of transitional housing, affordable homes, such as a trailer. That's my comment.
Thank you.
I'm finished.
Here's what I like to say. We're aware that housing is a very serious matter for our residents, and some of the people are working, and they can't keep their families in a solid place to live. And you brought up, Commissioner McGlohorn, you brought up transitional homes, and I think Commissioner Nunnally referred to it. Mr. Rose, could you come to the podium, please? I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Since we have a couple of people referring to transitional homes, did you do research into transitioning homes? Because I think we were here one night going on a long time in a large group of people talking about it. Did you investigate and look into that?
Well, this is something that's not new. We have been talking about transitional housing since we put our 10-year plan in place 15 years ago. And at that point in time, the federal government really was not advocating for transitional housing. Again, permanent solutions were the method that we were looking at, and that's still the case. I think I heard Ms. Ward ask about a plan. We do need a plan. We need a plan update, because when we were looking at our planning efforts for homelessness about 15 years ago, I know Mr. McGlohorn was involved, it was a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness. Well, the face of homelessness has continued to change, and we need to see what services and other things are needed and are available these days. So transitional housing is still not top on that list in most of the funding agencies. And that's where we feel like, and the success rate of folks moving into permanent housing versus transitional housing is higher.
Well, I have some people to stop by my office today, and the question to you is, Is there any county in Pitt County who do transitional homes as far as you know?
I am not aware of any in eastern part of the state right now. I am
Could,
not.
could we ask you as a board to look into that a bit more further about that, Madam Manager? And so that since this issue keep coming up and we're getting hit the mule with it, so
Yes,
let's
and so
look in it.
I have looked into it, and so just so you know who we've been meeting with and what the process has been since Ms. Foreman came and spoke, and actually before Ms. Foreman came and spoke, we were meeting probably since that cold snap with different stakeholders, that cold snap around Christmas time, where the issue really started. Ms. Foreman called me and after that and really shared a lot of information about how the face of homelessness is changing.
I want you to share that committee because I knew of it as chair. That committee you set up prior to our resident, Ms. Foreman, and we've called her name several times. You set that committee up, and we can talk about, inform the board as to that committee that you've been meeting with.
Right, so within James's office, there is a committee that meets weekly by phone and reviews all active homeless cases and utilizes community partners to put wraparound plans together to get people into permanent housing options. That has always been happening. In addition to that, I've hosted several meetings that included Ms. Foreman, other stakeholders that she has brought to the meeting, the City of Greenville, Community Crossroads, and other individuals involved in the housing and homelessness process. I have had phone conversations and several in-person meetings. And it was the result of those stakeholder meetings that the county came up with the list of recommendations that you had on your PowerPoint slide this evening as one option on how to allocate funds. We recognize that that option does not include funding for transitional housing, and if I'm hearing the board say you want further investigation into that before you make the allocations, we can certainly bring those back. We have done some investigation. There are no models that I'm aware of in our close vicinity, but I have been to various seminars and actually gone and looked at safe parking lots and transitional housing facilities, pallet-type home, transitional housing in Forsyth County, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and Chapel Hill area has some places that you can actually go look and see how that's working. They also did a seminar on those types of opportunities at the recent managers conference that I attended. And so we have done a good amount of research into those options. Those options were not included in part of the recommendations, but if I'm hearing you say you want to hear more about those before you direct further ARPA allocation on housing and homelessness, then we can certainly bring that back to the board. And if you're wanting a more formal committee, we can certainly establish that as well.
Well, I had a resident to come today, and she shared with me that she know of a transitional home, and I want to add that to the list of knowledge, because sometimes we have more residents than the 9 of us. So they said Onslow County has transitional homes, Mr. James Rose, so that you can check into that as we investigate more about transitional housing. But at this point, it bothers me when a mother is working and they get kicked out, her and her children get kicked out of the home because someone else purchased the home and they have to sleep in a car. That's not good for a family. So that's the part that bothers me. So at this time, we can't settle this tonight. Let's give Mr. Rose a chance to look more into it. Any objection to that? Ms. Huggins, are you going to bring something new up?
Yes.
All right.
As we talk about, James talks about permanent housing. I want to suggest tiny home. Have we looked at the tiny home
We have looked into that, and I'll bring back further recommendations on that when we talk about, tiny homes are in the realm of the FEMA trailer, tiny home, pallet house, box housing, and safe parking lots are all kind of within that realm with mobile showers and different things like that. We can bring back the pros and cons of each of those. Some have bathrooms, some don't have bathrooms. all need, we'll have various issues with regard to zoning, where to locate, if it's near or not near transportation sources, and different things like that. So we can include all of that in the analysis that we bring back if that's what the board would like. The only other thing I'll say, if I could, is if we defer for further on housing and homelessness, the board may lump it together, or the board may decide to provide direction just on the infrastructure funds this evening and hold the other.
That's what I was gonna ask, but I thought Commissioner was pointing over there, but he was getting attention, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
You got something new?
I'm gonna make it quick. I keep hearing plan. Do we have a plan in place? I've talked with Miss Foreman, Tanya Foreman, and she has a plan. And I don't know whether you talked to her, James, about
We've
her
had several
plan.
conversations.
She has a
yes.
plan. Do you not think that's the plan?
I'm not fully aware of her plan.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
I'm not fully aware of her plan. I don't know what you're referring to.
She has a plan, and I've talked to several other people in other cities, but I'm very concerned and confident of her plan, but, I'm not in that area, and that's why I wanted to, you and the county staff to see and that plan that she has.
I'd like to, I think we have two issues that we're talking about. One was the Stokes people and the infrastructure. And I saw Commissioner Benji do this, and he's getting bored. So here's what we're going to do. Let's vote on, let's get a motion. I'm asking for a motion on the infrastructure that includes the state mill and the water stuff. When people can't drink water, can't take a bath, can't wash their clothes, I have a problem. Yes, Commissioner White.
I'll make a motion to go with the staff recommendation for the ARPA funding for the water system.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner White for the ARPA funding for the water problem that we heard tonight, and it was seconded by Commissioner Nunley. All in favors, let's vote. That's a unanimous vote, Madam Clerk. Now we're going to talk about the motion for the transitional housing. What shall we do with it out of the board? And the people are listening and looking and waiting. Motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we look seriously into funding transitional homes.
Is there a second? That motion is lost.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we just leave it open?
Well, he
Give
made a
staff
motion on the floor. That motion is lost for the lack of a second. Is there another motion as relate to transitional homes or homelessness or anything having to do with temporary housing for our families? Is there a motion? So we'll move on without further delay of this issue. And my instructions for the staff, because they need to know what to do about it. The people are homeless, and we got a house full, and it's unusual that we have signs up, and I can't read them because the lights are in my eyes. So I want you to know, we will, I like to ask the officials to look a little further, County Manager, into this. You heard the discussion for tonight. Can we just consider this a discussion on this issue and bring it back at our next meeting? Is that all right?
We can, but Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
One of the things I have a concern about with spending all this ARPA money is it seems like so much of it's going to be spent on what I call momentary issues. We're not going to have 30-year gains out of the expense of many of these things. It's going to be used up and then it's gone. And then where are we?
Okay.
I mean, it's just an observance.
I appreciate Commissioner Tom Colson just made some more comments in a different line of thought. Planner Rose and County Manager Gallagher, please consider his comments in that thought. Any more comments on this issue? Because you all can tell I'm anxious to move on to the next agenda item.
Didn't guess.
Pardon?
Couldn't guess.
All right.
And I know you are anxious, but there was not a board motion or directive, so does that mean I do nothing, or does
No.
that mean I do something?
Yes. my expression was that you look into this matter, look at the transitional homes that we talked about and those things that you looked at as to that. Look into traditional homes and look into Onslow County, because I think Mr. Rose didn't know of any transitional homes.
Can I, maybe, Madam Chair, if I may, can I organize this in a form of a motion? Maybe move it on.
If your
So-
motion sounds like you're gonna address the issue.
It might not, it might be a little bit, but
Let's
I
hear your
I will
motion.
say that there was, if the board will please, there was conversation tonight involving a concern that we look at making sure that our investment in the homelessness issue includes transitional or immediate housing to meet immediate needs in the community, and that we would like staff to report back to us about ways that we could maximize the impact on addressing immediate homelessness concerns in our community.
Is that a motion?
And that's my motion.
Second.
The motion, Madam Clerk, did you hear Commissioner Nunley's motion?
Yes.
Replay the tape and get it right, and it's seconded by Commissioner McLaughlin. Thank you so much, board members. Let's vote.
I have a question. Concerning his motion?
Is this a discussion on this motion?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Because I thought we voted down the transitional homes. And that is included in his motion. I'm just asking for clarification.
I did not hear that.
You
I
didn't get a
didn't
second
hear-
on, you didn't get a second on the motion.
I didn't get a,
So I just, if I may, Madam Chair, Commissioner Huggins, I just broadened the motion to include the discussion and to allow staff to address everything that we discussed.
that's exactly right. It was a
Okay.
different motion.
Okay.
And the second
Uh,
was by
And it was
Commissioner
seconded
McLaughlin.
by Commissioner McLaughlin.
Right.
I'll accept that.
Is the board clear? Let's vote.
Actually, no, I'm not.
Vote yes to you approve Commissioner Nunley's motion for the staff and director, Madam Manager. And Mr. Rose, did you all understand his motion? You talking, Tom?
I'm not clear. I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, here's what we're talking about. Have the staff look into it.
Remember, I am old.
Okay, that's what I talk a little louder. For the benefit of the board and the public, the motion is to look at transitional home in addition to the information that our manager shared about the other types of temporary homes, so we can get our families in decent homes and bring back a report.
Basically researching it and finding out
Yes, sir.
stuff and not committing to anything.
There was nothing committed
Okay,
in
all
this
right.
motion.
All right, I'm
It
clear.
was a research and investigation. Is that what you understood, Madam Manager? Because you tend to the daily function. Thank you very much. Let's vote, please. Yes means that we approve the motion. No means that it's canceled. Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Let's move to the next item. Where am I supposed to be now?
Public hearings, Glandon Forest Equity. Public hearings, Glandon Forest Equity.
Public hearing. Number 1, Glandon Forest Equity. Who's on that? Mr. Rose.
Thank you,
for
Madam
your patience,
Chair.
Mr.
We do
Rose.
have one rezoning for your consideration tonight. It's Glandon Forest Equity. This is a conditional rezoning request, and we'll get to the details in just a minute. This is almost 2 acres in size. This is, you've seen the petitioner, and this property owned by the Elizabeth Huben heirs. This is at the intersection of NC 33 West and State Road 1417, also Belvoir School Road. And the request is to go from rural residential, the current zoning, to general commercial conditional district. And conditional district is for an express purpose. And this is for a department variety or general merchandise type of commercial use. So just to orient you a bit as far as where this site is located, and my pointer isn't working. Here we go. So you can follow the pointer and also see the red star here.
This is Martin Luther King Boulevard, the loop road here. Just off a bit to the north and west is the site that we're contending with tonight. And just beside that, not surprisingly by the namesake of the road, is Belvoir Elementary School. Looking at the comprehensive land use plan, this entire area is in that very close proximity is suburban residential, has a mix of types of uses. The red area down at the interchange with Martin Luther King Boulevard and NC 33 is actually a red commercial node. And there are also some floodplain areas, the darker green there. As far as existing land uses, you've seen a number of requests come through previously, different rezoning requests. Just across the road from this is a mining operation. Those areas in gray are all sand mining operations. The area in blue is the campus for Belvoir Elementary School, and then there are some mobile home parks and some subdivisions in close proximity, those shown in the gold colors. The remainder primarily undeveloped agricultural land. So suburban residential, as I've mentioned, primarily for residential uses, but also for limited multifamily, commercial, office, light industrial, and other types of uses that meet certain locational criteria. And those might include at a location at an intersection along a major road such as NC 33 West. And all of these areas in suburban residential have a greater potential for development and an inclusion of a broader range of uses, of land uses. So our zoning ordinance, if you looked at this, primarily in this area still, it's either rural residential or rural agricultural. The request tonight, again, is for general commercial, for one express use, and that being general merchandise. So the general commercial district, if you consider that tonight, is primarily intended to accommodate a wide range of different commercial uses, but you're only considering one tonight, and have access to major thoroughfares and with the necessary utilities. This conditional zoning district allows for this one particular use, and that is a department, variety, or general merchandise commercial use. So with these types of conditional zoning district requests, site plan comes in. I'll show you some of the details here. Again, about 1.8 acres, bounded in the red dashed line. The proposed retail space is shown in yellow. And then the parking, again, these types of operations typically require a fair amount of parking to handle their clientele. Certainly there's also access. There is no access out onto NC 33 West. The Department of Transportation is requiring the sole driveway to come off Belvoir Elementary School Road. And it does align with one of the driveways that leads into that school site. Also, with this type of impervious surface, a lot of impervious surface between the retail space and the parking area, stormwater best management practice or stormwater control measure will be required, and that's shown here in blue. Planning staff does find that this request is consistent with the land use plan. It's designated in a suburban residential area, and there is a mix of different types of uses there. And also, this is located right along NC 33 West. We believe it is reasonable and in the public interest. There are existing non-residential land uses in somewhat close proximity, and there is also a need for these necessary goods and services that would be provided by such a commercial establishment. The planning board also reviewed this and recommended approval. It was a split vote, 6-4, at their February meeting. And there are two motions. The consistency statement, pretty much as I've already detailed, and the motion for approval of this particular request for general commercial conditional district. And there are additional conditions, and that's what is allowed by this conditional district rezoning. Number one, there shall be a site plan submitted There's a landscaping plan also required for this, soil erosion sedimentation control, stormwater management plan, and then all the other requirements that have to be met through environmental health and the inspections office. DOT is also requiring a bit more information about the number of trips that would be generated by this type of use, and a driveway permit would have to be obtained through DOT. So with that, Madam Chair, we're ready for the public hearing tonight.
We have 2 people signed up to, 4. Oh, we have 3 people signed up to speak on this issue in the public hearing. We have a clerk, and come forward and let's get you sworn in. We'll declare it open.
First speaker is Linda Teal.
And Madam Chairwoman.
I like all 3. Can we get them all sworn in at the same time?
You don't get sworn in, they're just going to come up and speak, and the county attorney can read the message.
Okay, all right, we got it right.
Go ahead. Pitt County welcomes all comments on this proposed rezoning. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address prior to speaking.
Good evening. My name is Linda Teal, and I reside at 1151 Belleville School Road in Greenville. I'd like to thank each of you for your service to our county, and second, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns. For those commissioners who read my email that I sent to each of you on March the 3rd, it provided you with the background information regarding my love for the area and my concerns. Still, I feel it necessary to briefly express my concerns publicly for the record. My home, rental properties, and farm directly adjoin this parcel. I have additional farm and rental properties across from the parcel on Belleville School Road as well. I have 3 major concerns. Concern number 1 is the effect this will have on the quality of life for our community. We will face additional lighting, traffic, and safety issues arising from the fact that the parcel is located directly from the Belleville Elementary School, which already poses a high volume of traffic and safety issues during early mornings, school release hours, and afternoons. 2 busy intersections are located on each side of the school, Belleville School Road and Roosevelt Spain Road. I live within 1/4 of a mile of the school, but have stopped traveling that end of the road over 9 years ago because of the traffic and safety concerns. Currently, traffic in the morning from 7 to 8 a.m. makes it almost difficult and impossible to enter NC 33 West from Belleville School Road. Additionally, in the afternoons from 2:15 to 2:45, when school releases, passing down Belleville School Road is dangerous. While waiting to pick up students, vehicles park partially on the Belleville School Road and partially on the shoulder of the road, where signs clearly state no parking anytime. Second, if I am correct, a retail store like Family Dollar and Dollar General is proposed for this parcel. At the current time, if you Google the school location, there are 6 Family Dollar, Dollar Generals within 4.5 miles of the school. 3 are within 1.5 miles. Finally, with the increase of traffic and human footprints comes the increase of trash and the loss of wildlife. The pair of ospreys that I mentioned in my March 3rd email have returned, and they are preparing the nest again for the new family. It's such a peaceful and beautiful sight to watch. My closest neighbor, along with Belleville Elementary School groundskeeper and myself, together mow approximately 1/2 mile of both sides of Belleville School Road because we take pride in our community and we want it to look clean and neat. Each week I pick up a large garbage bag of trash and debris from the roadside. I predict that will increase. In closing, I ask that you take time to research and review this rezoning request before approval. While I am not opposed to economic development because our communities north of the river have surely had to wait their time to see it, I am opposed to affecting the lives of our citizens and wildlife while endangering our safety and quality of life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for observing our time, Ms. Teal.
Molly Holdeman.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Molly Holdeman, and I reside at 776 White Horse Drive in Greenville. My daughter Clara is a 3rd grader at Belvoir Elementary School. I'm concerned about the proposed building of a Dollar General store directly across the street from my daughter's school. My concerns are traffic and public safety, litter and light pollution, and changing the nature of a rural residential zoned area of Pitt County. Excuse me. I want to point out that the industrial zoning that Mr. Rhodes showed in that map is actually zoned rural residential. And while potentially devastating to the environment, the industrial sand mines out there produce very little traffic, are generally quiet, and don't emit nighttime light more than one street light. While I understand very well that Belvoir needs and deserves strong development, I do not think that a Dollar General is something that's going to help, especially in this area where there are already so many variety stores. These discount retailers do not create scores of local jobs or provide benefits or upward mobility for their employees. They're not a draw for small local businesses to open up next door. The litter around discount retailers is the kind that this board is trying to reverse in your Litter Free for You and Me campaign. The store and parking lot lights will light up the nighttime sky, dimming the sky for our neighbors all over Belvoir and possibly potentially negatively affecting wildlife. The preliminary site plan provided to the planning board and to you does not show that the proposed driveway is directly across from Belvoir Elementary School's main entrance. The draftman did confirm that at the planning board meeting on February 15th. This is dangerous. This placement, and it's around the curve, the end curve of Belvoir School Road that empties onto 33. I don't like the idea of a store that sells tobacco, beer, and wine across the street from my child's school. I shudder at the notion that folks could just sit there and look across the street at children as they go into school and out of school. Now, 2 of the planning board members noted that there are businesses across from Chicod and Aden Elementary. But my understanding is those areas were already zoned commercial before the schools were probably even built. And there's no reason that Belvoir students should suffer from thoughtless development. I want to point out, too, that when the planning board voted, it was a confused vote and it was a divided vote. All the land in this area is rural residential. The future land use plan designates it as suburban residential, with the only land around the bypass, only the land around the bypass zoned in the future for commercial. I know that you commissioners are concerned about development in rural areas. If Belvoir really needs another such store, why can't the family whose land this is rezone the land that's within the future land use plan and is already designated as commercial zone?
Are you near the end?
Okay. So once that precedent is set of a parcel being changed from one zoning type to another, it's a domino effect for all the other parcels. And I believe that that's what they plan, to start from the furthest edge and move to the commercial zone. This Pandora's box cannot be closed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your quick stuff.
The last speaker signed up is Jason Mizell.
Madam Chair, board members, my name is Jason Mazzell with the 10 Minutes Group, 1805 West City Drive, Elizabeth City, North Carolina, here on behalf of the applicant. The plan you see in front of you and the proposed conditional use, when we looked at this site, met the current land use plan as planning staff has already alluded to. As far as the location of the site, there is a strip of land between the property line and the road that actually belongs to the Board of Education. So our closest point to tie in to Belvoir School Road is where you see that driveway. The property line stops right there. As already been noted, DOT has told us up front, no connections to NC 33. That's why the site is all the way this direction. Certainly, if it could be further down, we certainly could do that, but with access restrictions, that poses quite a bit of a challenge to make that work. As for all the other conditions that staff and the planning board have recommended, we concur with those recommendations. They're all things we're going to have to do as a part of our local and state approvals. Short of that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. Thank you.
Got
all that you have signed up to speak.
I declare that the plan discussion is closed. The public hearing for this is closed. You may have a seat. If we have a question, we will ask you to come back. Now we have discussion from the board. Commissioner Nunley.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Mr. Rhodes, so looking at the future land use map, it appears that this site is not within, although it would be commercial, is not within the nodal development that we've talked about in other areas, and really, in an effort to consolidate commercial activity in commercial nodes, in an effort to cut down on suburban sprawl, things of that nature. And understand the applicant is here tonight and just heard that they've moved further down because they can't connect to I guess 33, I guess, close into the commercial node. Is that the position that we couldn't develop commercial within this commercial node that we've got designated in the future
I
land
cannot
use plan?
answer that.
Okay, so
That was
I
a
guess-
landowner decision.
Okay, so I guess what I'm driving at, the question is, would granting or modifying this zoning, which is outside of the future land use plan, influence future decisions about parcels that may be between this conditional rezoning and that commercial node that's already been designated? Would that influence decision-making?
I think the main thing, and from staff's perspective, this intersection is not conducive to residential use. That's been one of our concerns. No, it's not designated as a general commercial node, but it's on a major road at an intersection, and given some of the other characteristics that you've heard about tonight with traffic and all, it's not an ideal place for a single-family type home. So with this, I can't say for sure. Certainly there could be some internal streets, reverse frontage roads, where residential could be placed in between these two nodes.
So, but it's perfectly suited as rural, designated rural, right? There's no problem with it remaining rural, so to speak.
Other than the request before you tonight.
Sure, but, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else on this end? Then I turn my head this way, we got Commissioner McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. James, what was the vote on the planning staff initially?
For the planning board,
Planning
it
board.
was
Planning board.
6 in favor of the rezoning request and 4 against.
What was the reason of that they voted against it?
Based off the discussion, it was proximity to the school and some traffic issues were the primary reasons. They did agree that it was consistent with the land use plan. And again, that's one of our major considerations.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Huggins?
James, I don't have a question, but I want to say I watched the planning board meeting. So I watched that meeting. I also drove out there to look at the traffic. And I believe one person spoke about that curve there coming onto, I think that's Belvoir Road. There's a curve, deep curve there. And getting back out on 33 is really difficult. That traffic on 33. So, and to have a store driveway right there, to me, I think it would not be the most safe thing to have. So, for traffic alone, I would disagree with rezoning it. I would just, let it stay like it is. So, as I said, I drove out there, I watched the meeting. I heard all the discussions, the pros and the cons on it, so.
Are you finished, Commissioner
Mhm.
Clemens? Commissioner White?
I have a couple of questions. At the planning meeting, I did not watch it. How many people were there in favor and against, could you say?
We had one speaker that you heard from tonight and another speaker that you heard from tonight that had written a letter in very similar to what you heard tonight, as far as the audience was concerned.
Okay, so there wasn't more against it or more for it than what we've heard tonight, really?
There was a representative from the school board there, or not from the school board, but school staff, and just to provide some resource information, but basically the same comments you've heard tonight.
And the school staff seemed supportive of it or not supportive of it?
Was not against it.
The school staff is not against it. They seem to be in favor of it.
Was not against it.
My last question for you, James. I know we have heard tonight that it's a Dollar General or Family Dollar being proposed, and I know a lot of times we're not supposed to know this. Is there any, because that seems to be, I think, some of the concern is that that will be a store, that will be the store there. Do we know for sure that that's what will be there?
We don't know exactly for sure, but the definition that you've got up here lends itself nicely to that type of store.
Okay.
Commissioner, are you finished, Commissioner White?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Colson, I'm so sorry.
Mary, we're not supposed to collude, but you have made a case for years about development north of the river. What I would like to ask you is, would you give your opinion in regards to your past pleas for development north of the river as related to this?
You doing to me what I've done to you in the past. I'll say to you that the one time that this board did venture into our first commercial property was just on the other side of the crossroads to this pattern that they're looking at now. And the board, I was the only one who voted in favor. That was because that I had knocked on all of the doors with some assistance from the residents and asked their opinion. And we took a note for each residence in that area across from, and they wanted it. In this situation, I did not. I went over and I sat across the school and looked at the traffic, and I drove around the curve and sat on the school ground and watched the traffic and the highway fill up on the side of the road. That was a little touchy for me when they were sitting alongside of the road and people had to turn out and go around them to get onto Belleville Highway. It wasn't heavy traffic. I like very much to see my district get some commercial property that would support families, yes. But I don't want it to be negative, and I don't want it to endanger families. Our children do have a habit of getting on highways to ride those motor vehicles that they buy at Christmas time. And the schools does not allow for them to play on the grounds in the parking area. Now, do I support it? Do I support commercial? Yes. I'm concerned about this one. I had asked Mr. Rose, what did I ask you beforehand about RPO and the SOP? He was going to go to it. Get me right, Mr. Rose.
I don't know.
Where is Jonas? Is he here?
No, ma'am.
Okay, he was going to an RPO. Now, what's the RPO?
Rural Planning Organization.
Rural Planning Organization. What's the MPO?
Metropolitan Planning Organization.
And there was a statement as it relates to the traffic and the entrance of that Dollar General, Tom. They got a statement from that meeting or something at that particular time, and this is the reason they had said they would not accept traffic entering Belleville Highway due to the problem with the congestion. So it's obvious that these owners, my family own land, and we feel like we ought to do, now that I'm the last one, we should do what we want to with it. But we should want to do what is conducive for all of the families and the safety of the people. Lauren White is asking for.
Thank you. I just want to.
Did I answer your question?
Kind of.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more comment. I know it's been pointed out that this is different than the Dollar General there at Chicot, which that is the neighborhood, the community that I live in. And there has not been what I would consider to be a huge amount of traffic increase. It hasn't backed up on the roads. At any given time, and I run out there a lot, at any given time, there's 5 cars max in the parking lot, maybe 6 or 7 on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So just want to throw that out there.
But I tell you one thing, since I'm going to ask for a motion, Tom, this board knows that I have been very, very, very concerned about the trash. That is one thing that happens at those Dollar Generals and Family Dollar stores, that the numbers that come in that are bad, and it is ugly for the traffic, and it discourages property. Are you going to offer a motion, Commissioner McLaughlin?
Make a comment.
Okay, comment.
I too, I have studied that area. I do represent that area as well.
I know you do.
And that there is some traffic in that area that concerns me. And I've talked to several people that live in that community, and they were telling me about the traffic. So I am concerned about that. And I too, as you, Commissioner Mary Perkins-Williams, support development, but not at the expense of putting people's lives in jeopardy. So I am concerned about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are you going to offer a motion, or you want to make some comments?
Just a brief comment.
Commissioner Nunley again.
Since we're talking about economic development, I do think that we have approved similar commercial zonings where there was also similarly situated commercial establishment in the area. To me, this is just not one of them. That's what kind of leads me down a little bit different path in my opinion, but there's one out in Stokes. We've done some north of the river, kind of in a village type thing, but I really like to see that we're making an effort to preserve our rural communities when we can, condense our commercial development when we can, to try to limit suburban sprawl as long as we can, because we know that's not anti-development. That I think that in long run makes our development more attractive to the community in long term. So and for that reason, I would that's why I'm kind of leaning the way I am.
Is this board ready to vote?
I did have one more comment.
All right.
I just want to call our attention to, we talked about traffic, to the safety. We just had a 9-year-old to be killed crossing Memorial Drive, and with putting the Family Dollar store and the kids coming from the Family Dollar store, coming from the school over to the Family Dollar store, it just puts them in a dangerous situation. So for that reason, I would be glad to make a motion.
The motion is in order.
That we deny.
Second.
State it out completely, deny what?
That we deny rezoning this.
Second.
Commissioner Huggins has made the motion that we deny this particular zoning at this time. Second by Commissioner Nunley. Let's vote, please. You vote yes to be in favor of the motion, no to kill it.
No, okay. I guess I voted right.
The motion passes. So I'm sorry, Mr. Rose, this board does not support building a Dollar General at this time. Is that right? According to the motion? Who are we talking about?
That is correct.
Thank you.
There is a second procedural matter we need to address because the staff report said it was consistent and reasonable and in the public interest If you turn to page 8 of your agenda packet, we need to.
Page what?
Page 8 of your agenda packet.
Page 8.
The bottom, submit or recommended motion number 1, adopt the consistency statement. This board can find that it is consistent with the plan. That's up for y'all to decide. But based off your action, at least that second paragraph, I think you would term it to be unreasonable and not in the public interest due to the reasons expressed here tonight. It's a procedural matter that this board needs to act on based off your actions tonight.
So are you saying that we need another motion, said that based on the procedure,
Yes, ma'am.
state how it should be
So
worded,
moved.
please?
So moved. According to.
I want the motion read. State the motion as to how this board should word it. Sometimes wording is important due to law and everything else, and this is what I want happen now, right?
I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
I believe the motion would be on page, the paragraph page 1 at the bottom of page 8. It would adopt the first paragraph, the plan is consistent. And then at the bottom, the request is unreasonable and not in the public interest due to concerns expressed here
Yes,
tonight
yes.
regarding
That's
traffic and anything else that the motion maker would like to throw in. Distance from other commercially zoned properties. Does that cover the concerns?
All right. Commissioner Huggins, since you were to make sure the motion, could you?
We already have a motion and a second by Chris and Benji.
Benji made a motion too? Oh, you did make a motion?
He did, I second.
Yeah, what y'all say? What was it?
What he just said. That's what-
Oh, okay then, we have a motion on the floor. I'm sorry, I didn't hear, I got my ears plugged up. Based on what our attorney said was legal,
So we voting
we vote yes,
one
and
for
then
yes.
we'll be in favor of what our attorney said, and then 2 for no. The motion that we have, would you read the motion for the public, Mr. Attorney, Ms. Clerk?
The conditional consistency statement is where the plan is consistent with the additional concerns expressed tonight regarding the traffic flow and
It's unreasonable, not in the public interest.
unreasonable and not in the public interest.
Okay, so this presentation, to the public is that it's not in the best interest of the public for safety reasons. We're ready for the next thing, Mr. Rose. Don't you still have something else?
Yes, ma'am. One other public hearing, and this is hopefully going to help with your future decisions. This is an update to our Pitt County Land Use Plan. That one was adopted back in 2011, so it's time to update it. We've had a couple of corridor plans that have been developed through the last handful of years, but we look broadly at the remainder of the county. So just a few acknowledgments before I bring the speaker up. Number one, our planning board did a great job as serving as steering committee through the past year in developing this plan, and we just want to make sure that they get their due. Number two, certainly all our partners and stakeholders, they've been a big part of this development and making sure that it meets what we need out in our community. And then finally, staff member Eric Gooby, that's been the lead planner on this, has done a great job. It's 158 pages. He's done a real good job in making sure that it's exactly what it needs to be. And with that, also, Jake Petrosky's here tonight. He's with Stewart, and he's going to give you a better insight into Envision Pitt County 2045. And Jake, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Thank you all for having me. That's okay. I can figure it out here. All right. Well, thank you all for having me. Jake Petrosky with Stewart. Had the pleasure of working with James and and Eric and the rest of the staff on this and the planning board. I have a short presentation, then happy to answer any questions you may have. Want to talk a little bit about project overview, just background about the draft plan, some key topics addressed, and then get into questions discussion. So a comprehensive plan is required by state law if you're going to enforce zoning. So that's a new law, 160D. But it's also a good idea. It's important to have a plan and know where we're going as a county. And this plan is long range. It's looking at the next 10 to 20 years. It's meant to be updated every about 5 years, 5 to 7 years. But we're looking long term, because the decisions you all make on a night-by-night basis and through investment decisions, that really affects the trajectory of the county. So it's important to be thinking long term. It does provide guidance in terms of land uses and staff and programs and infrastructure investment. It's collaborative. It's really meant to be a community conversation that occurs periodically to talk about where we are, what's working, what are emerging issues, and where do we want to go. It is policy. It's not regulatory. This plan by itself is not going to update your zoning ordinance, but it can lay the groundwork for rezoning decisions and also potentially modifications to the zoning ordinance to make it work better for you. So that's an important point. It does make recommendations for land use and development, but it also touches on other topic areas too. We can't support land use and development without infrastructure. So it talks about infrastructure and services. It talks about economic development and housing, natural resources, parks, and other quality of life issues as well. So the draft plan itself is divided into 4 main sections. There's an introduction that talks about the process and why we're doing it and main issues. The input and goals sections, it really talks about what we heard from the community in terms of public engagement and all those results. And it has a mission and plan goals that really guide the recommendations, which is the next chapter. I'll talk a little bit about some of the topic areas, but then the appendix has a lot more information on previous planning, additional mapping, and also public engagement, more detailed information on public engagement. So public engagement was a big piece of this. This is really the work of hundreds of people that have weighed in through the survey, through public meetings, through stakeholder interviews, and of course the planning board did a great job with steering committee as a steering committee as well. So there was a lot of input on this. We had a survey. We asked, well, what are your top priorities for land use? And these are some of them: parks and recreation, agricultural preservation, open space, affordable housing, and commercial development. So 2 topics that you all talked about tonight. We asked what are the top 3 factors for establishing and maintaining quality residential development. Number 1 was roads and infrastructure. Number 2, preservation of open space and trees, and access to trails, greenways, and parks. We had a lot of stakeholder meetings where we met throughout the course of a day and talked to real estate folks, builders, environmental groups, schools and health officials, municipal leaders, folks from the economic development side, and Visit Greenville and transportation folks, to get a lot of different feedback on what they thought major issues were. And I think we addressed many of these. And you can see topics such as economic development, highway improvements, tourism, housing, food insecurity, and parks and greenway accesses. We had a number of public meetings, and it was really good to just be in different parts of the county. We made it a point to meet in the south and in the north, in different places. We heard some themes, infrastructure, especially broadband, and you all are addressing some of that with recent ARPA funds, road maintenance and modernization. Folks wanted us to focus on the basics, like roads and infrastructure and access to services and those sorts of things. Quality commercial development, housing availability came up over and over again. A lot of the same issues that were raised earlier. Access to services and how crucial outreach is, not just during this plan, but even beyond this plan, to get folks engaged and keep them engaged in the important decisions that the county makes. Some of the plan topic areas, I mentioned some of these, but land use and development, transportation, economic development, housing, natural resources, parks, cultural assets, and agriculture. The future land use map is an important part of this. We use it regularly for rezoning decisions, but also to understand where we want to put services and where infrastructure should be extended. It provides general land use guidance and identifies an intended development pattern, where more commercial areas are, where more agricultural areas are. It is policy, it's not regulatory, but it should influence those regulatory changes. It should influence development design, even before things get to you all. It should guide rezoning decisions, and it can be updated periodically if there's something that comes in before this body that is a good idea that you didn't anticipate. So it's not meant to be static. It's meant to evolve, but it's meant to guide those rezoning decisions. And also guide infrastructure and service investment decisions. You all can't provide the county services that you provide over every square inch of this county. We would need 10 hours a year to do that, right? Like, that's just not possible. So that's why it's important for us to identify this and plan this, because where we approve development has fiscal implications as well. So this is a map of the future land use map. It's a lot of things are similar to the previous plan, but we did take a deep dive and look at the residential areas and those transitional areas between more suburban residential areas and the agricultural areas. We refined the areas that we want to see commercial and industrial development pretty significantly. And those have detailed maps in the appendix as well. I know it's kind of hard to see everything at the county level, but there are more detailed maps in the appendix. That map is really supported by the recommendations in the plan. And some of the key land use recommendations are transportation and infrastructure standards for new development, both commercial and residential, utilizing transitional features such as buffers and other things to reduce impacts of new non-residential development in certain areas. Open space in particularly residential developments, design and placements, again, trying to address some of those major things that came out of the survey. Subdivision and commercial site design, and then conditional zoning guidance. You all have conditional zoning as a tool, and I think that I think it's a good tool. It allows you all to have open dialogue with applicants and customize conditions that you put forth, but also the applicant can agree on to get better design, particularly for commercial development, particularly for rural commercial development. So there's some guidance on what types of things can go into that. Some of the things that you all use regularly, like limiting types of uses on certain properties. But there's also other things that you all don't use all the time that might make a particular development proposal more appropriate, particularly in the rural areas, than just your standard approach to development. So that's something that hopefully will provide guidance for future decisions. And also how to reduce impacts of high impact uses and where they should be located, but also how to make those developments more appropriate. Housing and economic development are two big things that are addressed, where and how to allow a mix of housing types in different areas. Increasing flexibility for accessory dwelling units as a way to increase slightly more housing options in rural areas or even suburban areas. Partnering with municipalities to understand affordable and workforce housing needs. As James mentioned, a lot of the solutions to affordable housing needs to be located near services. A lot of criteria that comes along with tax credits. There's a rubric of things that you need to be near, services, grocery store, that sort of thing. So a lot of those places are in municipalities, Greenville, but also other municipalities. So partnering with them is an important part of that. Economic development, although there's separate, specific economic development plans and departments that deal with that, we think it's really important to note that in the land use plan, the comprehensive plan, that we want to promote development of prime industrial lands. There's not all land is created equal, so we want to identify those in cooperation with Pitt County Economic Development and promote the development of those, because local jobs is good for the community, but also for the tax base. Expanding access to broadband is mentioned in the economic development section, and also tourism and visitation. There's a lot of opportunity in terms of different kinds of tourism, particularly agritourism and and outdoor recreation tourism that was brought up during the stakeholder interviews and that we want to see progress made long term. Culture and agriculture. Cultural resources that you all have include, your agriculture and your rural character that really defines a lot of Pitt County, and we heard that talked about tonight. So there's some recommendations on how that can be preserved in tandem with allowing some development. Historic preservation is something that, you think, a lot of people think historic preservation and they think about downtown Greenville and that sort of thing, or downtown Farmville. But you all actually have a lot of historic structures in the county. There's actually a designated historic landscape or rural district in the southwestern part of the county that's very unique. But you all have a lot of historic landscapes in the county and structures. Mention of collaborating with Greenville and other municipalities on a Pitt County African American Heritage Trail is in the plan. Related to agriculture, you have a lot of programs that support farmers and continued enrollment of those, and the present use value program that provides tax breaks to working farms, and then the voluntary agricultural district programs that provide protection to farmers from new residential development. But there's some steps that you all can take to limit impacts of new residential development. That's big picture from a land use and development pattern to steer more dense development away from more important agricultural areas, but also at a site level in terms of making sure that new residential development is designed in a way that doesn't impact existing agricultural operations. Things such as a residential agricultural buffer where the new residential development puts a buffer between them and agricultural fields, because if they don't do that, if they aren't designed appropriately, it can impact and limit the use of agricultural fields. So that's an important point. Parks and community health, you all have a long history in supporting access to parks in Pitt County, and you all have been a leader in that. Updating the Parks Master Plan is kind of a logical step. Looking at future joint use agreements with schools and continuing that program. Identifying increased funding, and then some specific things, enhancing the district park in the south and improving park access north of the Tar River and growing areas like the southeast. This map kind of shows 7 or 8 things that you all could do to address improved park access throughout the county. Transportation, again, this was a joint process with NCDOT Transportation Planning Branch and the MPO, and we looked at a number of different things. In some growing areas, particularly the southeast, there's some large pieces of property that could be developed in residential and likely will be developed as residential development in that 10 to 20 year time frame. So one of the things that we did in plan was identify some connections that may need to be made in terms of street connections in order to make sure that there's not large subdivisions that all go out and have driveways or access roads on one road. So it would really break up some of these super blocks down there and limit traffic impacts on some of your main roads. Because with the future of transportation funding, widening roads, especially long stretches of rural road, is uncertain in the future. So the degree we can distribute traffic with these collector streets is going to be important. It's not saying that it has to happen right at this location. More work needs to be needed, and the development has to have some flexibility on how to accommodate them. That's an important part of this. We also identified improvement priorities in terms of intersection priorities. A lot of those are in the appendix. Some recommendations on school sites, greenways, and bus service as well. Natural resources, some of the things that were mentioned in the recommendations, protecting water quality and managing stormwater, specific things that we need to continue, but also some things we need to look into. Maintaining and improving drainage, protecting natural features, and improving access to the Tar River. Again, that's an underutilized resource, and some people have discovered it, but more people will in the future, and will like to have access to it. So that's kind of a brief overview. Again, this has been a 14-month process, so it's difficult to truncate everything into a brief slideshow, but happy to answer questions. The plan has been available for review and comment. There was the public hearing at the planning board, and then we're here at the second public hearing, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
The floor is now open. This meeting is now open for public hearing to this plan.
You've
Would
no
it-
one signed up to speak.
No one has signed up to speak. Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this comprehensive plan for Pitt County? Not hearing any.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, who was that over here?
And I just want to ensure, Mr. McLaughlin, that is an effective date. It's your motion in the package, May 1st.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct. And Madam Chair, while I'm at it, I'd like to recognize
I was going to do that.
Senator Candy Smith in the audience. I saw her there. I didn't see her at a distance, but she's here.
Yes.
So certainly I recognize her.
And the manager pointed it out that our senator is visiting our meeting. We're happy to have you. And our representative was visiting. I don't know where she is cornered by the people in the hallway, but I was going to recognize the two of you, and please let our records show that they were visiting us. What was that? The motion for me. Motion. Mark, you and I, we got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. The motion to accept the plan passed.
Madam Chair, may I make a statement?
Sure.
Okay. I should have made it earlier, but I would like everybody to know that the winners of the art contest, the 3 winners, did receive a $25 gift certificate from me.
Thank you so much for making that known publicly. We appreciate it. And I know they're happy. What's the next?
The next are your items for report, and if the board would indulge, and I know this may be out of order, we have one gentleman here, Aaron Erickson, who is here for your local control of school calendar, which also might be of interest of your
Can
representatives
we
in the room.
consider that now, Madam Commissioners? Will y'all give me consensus by nodding your head to take care of that now? I think that's what the manager's asking for. Is that all right? Thank you so very much for cooperation. Let's do it, Madam.
Okay, yes. On your item for decision number 1 is a resolution supporting local control of the school calendar. Aaron Erickson is here from the Board of Education. Should you have any, from the Pitt County Schools, should you have any questions about this resolution that's contained on page 106 of your packet, you'll see that the Board of Education adopted a similar resolution, and they asked that we share in
We need a
adopting
motion if we
one.
want to be in sync with the Board of Education calendar, so we can be home when the children's home.
I will make a motion
Second.
to approve the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner White that we support the adoption of that calendar. Second by Commissioner Tom Colson. Let's vote. Oh, well, he didn't tell me to vote for him, and I can't vote for him, but we gotta have everybody vote, so I'm gonna get a bottle of water until Commissioner Nunnick come back in.
Or his failure to vote can be counted with your majority.
That's what we can do
So
then.
it'll be
Thank you.
unanimous.
All right, so pass unanimous. That's why I know we got a manager that can keep me out of trouble. Thank you.
All right, then you're up to items to report, Russell Hill.
Russell Hill, items to report. Slap them taxes on us.
Good afternoon,
afternoon.
Chairwoman Perkins Williams, Commissioners, Manager Gallagher. Tonight, I bring to you the February 2023 collection report. The Pitt County fiscal year to date, July 1, 2022 through February 28, 2023, combined collection rate for real and personal property is 97.59%. The combined rate 1 year ago for real and personal property was 98.01%. Pitt County Tax Administration continues to pursue all outstanding taxes using the necessary remedies available through the North Carolina General Statutes. It's my recommendation that the board approve the February 2023 collection report as presented.
Who'd like to make the motion? Madam Commissioner White makes the motion, second by Commissioner Benji. Haldeman. Let's vote, please. Commissioner White?
Sorry, I didn't-
Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Oh, right, there we go. Mr. Cruz.
Well, good evening again.
Thank you.
Tonight I bring you the February 2023 financial report for the General Fund, Solid Waste Fund, and the EMS Fund. We are 8 months into the fiscal year, or 66.7% of the year. For the General Fund, we have collected 75.6% of anticipated revenues and spent 62.3% of budgeted expenditures. For solid waste, we have collected 89.5%, and we have spent 62.2%. For EMS, we have collected 74.8% and spent 65.8%. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If not, it's my recommendation for the board to approve the monthly finance report as
I need
presented.
a motion. Motion to approve by
Second.
Commissioner
Commissioner Gallhorn approved it.
Glohorn
and you can put
and
Commissioner
second
Floyd
by
Huggins.
Commissioner Floyd Huggins. Let's vote, please. Motion passed unanimous. Thank you so much, Commissioner Croom. I mean.
Say not yet. Not yet.
Thank you. Now we have the manager's report.
Yes, your next meeting dates are on your agenda, April 3rd at 6 PM in this meeting, May 1st at 6 PM in this meeting room, and that will be the presentation of your budget, followed by May 2nd through 4th at 8:30 AM budget workshops moving forward. And just a note that you only have one meeting in the month of April. Second, I'd like to provide an update on the Regional Economic Development Summit that this board has heard about in the past. This was an initiative of Chairwoman Perkins Williams, where she would like to get together members from the 29-county region to discuss matters related to economic development and collaboration. That event has been set for June 21st, which is a Wednesday, at the Mark Owens Agricultural Auditorium. They'll be beginning at 9:30 in the morning. There'll be registration at registration tables beginning at 9 a.m. With a continental breakfast, a program of speakers. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Deputy Secretary of Commerce Kenny Flowers will be our keynote speaker, as well as a panel discussion that morning. It will wrap up around 11:30 with a box lunch thereafter. The meal will be sponsored by Pitt County Economic Development.
What was that date again, please?
June 21st.
We have invited all of our elected officials here sitting at this dais and the ones above. We need to start talking with our counties around us so that we can draw some economic development east of I-95 as it relates to total Pitt County. That's why we're joining on. So since we have Senator Candace Smith here, I'd like for you to put that on your calendar, and so you'll know that I'll be looking for you in the place. And we will give you a reminder by email.
We'll send a save the date card by the end of next week and invitations with registration there'll be no cost, but there will be registration by the first week in May.
Any questions, Mr. and Ms. colleagues?
And then
Everybody shaking hands. Thank you, everybody shook their head.
And then it's not listed on the agenda, but if I may add one thing, I wanted to make the board aware, if you're not aware already, of some key personnel changes that we have coming up. You may have heard that Jordan Smith, our county attorney, his last day will be April 28th with us, so we appreciate his service and wish him well in his next endeavor.
Yes.
I also received notice that Cam Coburn, our Director of Pitt Area Transit, will be retiring with 30 years and 1 month worth of service at the end of April. We thank him for his service and wish him well, and he'll be before this board again, given his years of service, for a resolution. And then also to let this board know that John Silvernail, Dr. John Silvernail, Pitt County Public Health Director, his last day with Pitt County government will be April 10th. And we will work closely with the Board of Health on that position. And that's all I have for the manager's report this evening.
We have a NCACC meeting, is that soon? Oh, well, never mind, you're gonna make your report.
It will be in May.
I need a motion for consent.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner White that we approve the consent, second by Commissioner McLaughlin. Let's vote, please. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes unanimous. Items for decision, we've taken care of all of the items for decision. We will now have comments for the county commissioners. I'm gonna start on this end because it's been very quiet by Benji Forrest, Benji Holloman tonight. So, Madam Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Holloman, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner McLaughlin, Commissioner White,
No comment.
Commissioner Huggins, no, Commissioner Colson. I don't know why I'm trying to do that to you tonight. Please forgive me.
You don't love me anymore, that's what.
Oh, my goodness. I love all of you. So there are no more closed session. Mr.
Jordan Smith.
Yeah, Jordan
Madam Chair, would you
Smith.
like me to read the suggested basis to go into closed session?
See, you done already left. I can't call your name.
It has been suggested that this body go into closed session under the following grounds: North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A6 to discuss personnel. North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A3 to consult with an attorney employed by the body. And finally, under North Carolina General Statute 143, 31810 to protect information that is not considered a public record.
We
Motion.
take 5 minutes. Oh,
I was just gonna make a motion to go into closed
we
session.
going.
Second that.
Motion by White, second by Nunley. Let's vote. We're going into closed session. We have, we'll call the meeting back into open session, and we have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the closed session minutes from February 6, 2023.
Second.
Second by Smith. Let's vote. Where's my clicker? We got a person over here that don't know how to act. Unanimous, passed. All right. One more time, any final comments? Who would like to make my motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Who seconded? Second by Commissioner Ward. Let's vote. Let's go home.